Hello and welcome to the COVID-19 update on Channels Television. I'm Millicent Walker. First, the highlights. Federal government saddened by impact of COVID-19 pandemic. Edo government warns religious bodies against negative publicity. And European Union's drug regulator backs Novavax shot. Thank you for joining us. Over the weekend, the NCDC, in its weekly epidemiological report, showed that after an increase in the number of tests in the country, the number of new confirmed cases rose from 530, that's about 0.5% the previous week, to 4.6%, 2,859. Also, the week in review, week 49, reported a higher number of positive cases spotted of both inbound and outbound travelers compared to week 48. Out of the number of inbound international travelers tested, there was a 3.3% rise in positive cases compared to 1.3% the previous week. For outbound international travelers tested, 560 of the total number tested positive. That's 7.4% compared to 1.8 in week 48. Worldwide, the case fatality rate is at 2.0%. Here's the look at the pandemic update.
Persons in Nigeria have tested positive to COVID-19 in the last 24 hours. According to the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, the latest figures were reported from 11 states and the FCT, indicating a drop from the figures reported earlier. Oyo led the chart with 122 cases, FCT logged 84 cases, Lagos had 52 cases, Kaduna 51, while Imo registered 20 cases. Delta logged 18 cases, Kano 17, Kwara 16, Rivers 11, Enugu 10, Ogun 2, while Edo registered 1 case. The new tally has increased the total confirmed cases in Nigeria to 223,887. The report also includes 0 cases from Bauchi, Ekiti, Ondo, Osun, and Plateau states. 15 patients have been discharged in the last 24 hours, increasing the total number of recoveries to 211,537. There was an additional death resulting from COVID-19 complications in the last 24 hours, raising the fatality toll to 2,985. Currently, there are over 9,000 active cases in Nigeria, while over 3.7 million samples have been tested so far. More than 8.7 million eligible Nigerians targeted for COVID-19 vaccination have received their first dose, while over 4 million persons have been fully vaccinated. The total global confirmed cases have surpassed 274 million, while deaths are beyond 5.3 million.
And with 8 years left to the attainment of Sustainable Development Goals by 2030, the federal government has been lamenting the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on achievements made so far. Speaking at the roundtable dialogue on the establishment of SDG innovation hubs in the country, the senior special assistant to the president on SDGs explains that if the global goals are to be attained by 2030, then the government cannot rely on the traditional budgetary sources, which she describes as grossly inadequate to finance the SDGs. She calls for collaboration to reach goals by 2030.
I want to say once again that we have to double our efforts. We have to roll our sleeves. We have 9 years to go. This is December 2021. 8 years to go so that we have the remaining year to evaluate what we have done. So 8 years is around the corner. Let us work together, fast track. Already COVID has denied us opportunity, has eroded what we have achieved, almost everything. So there's need for us to double our action in this regard to claim all what we have lost during the COVID-19. And don't let us zero our mind. We shouldn't be mindful. We should be mindful also the Omicron variant that is on us. So all of us must keep safe and ensure that we always encourage our neighbors to keep safe. If they are safe, we will be safe. If you are not safe, our neighbors will not be safe. We should remember our family, the way we tackled COVID-19, and we have less problem. We don't want to have any problem with Omicron at all, if we can.
Meanwhile, the Edo State government has reiterated its desire to vaccinate at least 60% of the population by the end of next year to ward off the threat of the fourth wave of the pandemic. The Deputy Governor of the state, Mr. Philip Shaibu, speaking during a sensitization campaign in the city, Benin City, the state capital, encouraged residents to come out for their jabs, adding that those with 2 complete doses can add a booster dose. He admonished also religious institutions against promoting negative publicity about COVID-19 vaccination, noting that religion should not stand in the way of orthodox medicine as treatment against the virus.
We are really impressed with the level of involvement of different stakeholders who have graciously participated and taken ownership of the vaccination exercise. We appreciate the churches, mosques, and all religious leaders that have been in forefront of this. I know there are some religious leaders that still believe that the vaccine should not be taken. And my request to them is that please change your mindset. Don't worry. I know some of you preach miracles. And because you preach miracles and you feel you will lose your members in some of these religious houses. No, you will not lose your members. Miracle can only be effective to the extent you make effort to allow the miracle to come in. The miracle that we are preaching now is that go and take this vaccine, and God will allow that vaccine to boost your immunity against COVID-19. So the real miracle is the boosting of that immunity. And who make it possible? You and God. Your own role is to make effort, and God's role is to bless that vaccine to boost your immunity.
And to the southwest, where the Ekiti State government has been engaging media personnel on the need for more thorough reportage of issues around the COVID-19 pandemic and also tackling misinformation. The state organized a workshop for journalists to update them on the pandemic and also emerging strains, as the state also encourages productive partnership that will ensure public health is preserved despite the ravaging pandemic.
We have organized the sensitization program for the media practitioners, the media industry in Ekiti State, to the extent that we wanted them to understand, the new realities in the COVID-19 pandemic fight, especially with the Omicron variant that has just been, that is becoming the talk of the town, and what their role should be. Of course, they've been very consistent, they've been very supportive, but we're actually advocating for more collaboration with the media, especially in the reliability of information, because we've noticed that quite a lot of misinformation and myths are out there that we really wanted them to step up their journalism to be able to counter. So especially around this time also that we're doing a lot around COVID vaccination and all the rumors that is going around. So we're kind of building their capacity to be able to respond to many of those rumors and lies that surrounds the COVID vaccination.
And food scientists in Nigeria believe that horticultural crops can help fight against COVID-19. According to them, more than 60% of food crops fall under horticulture, which can improve nutrition and enhance food security. The experts in food systems were speaking at the Cocoa Research Institute of Nigeria, where they insist that horticulture must get better attention.
Experts in food systems from different parts of the country are seated here, deliberating on the future of horticulture as it affects climate change and nutrition in an era of COVID-19 pandemic.
More will be said about the likely.
They believe that the fight against COVID-19 could be more effective with some horticultural crops.
When somebody is sick, if you have catarrh, they say go and take lime, go and take lemon, take a lot of oranges. These are horticultural crops. If somebody is sick, they say take ginger, take garlic. These are all horticulture, so they help in fighting disease and building the immune system. So horticulture as a profession helps a lot. One, there are a lot of people who produce vegetables, okra. They make a lot of money from that as a source of income. And apart from being source of income, the food is a source of food and is a source of nutrients.
These scientists are of the opinion that the practice of horticulture, which encompasses the production of food crops, herbs and roots for healthy living, deserve better attention.
We believe that horticulture is the major source of nutrient-rich food, and we need to give attention to the production of horticultural commodity, not only production, not only enhancing the production, but making it available for the teeming population.
The conference today is all to showcase the potentials of what the country have in terms of horticulture. Also to highlight some of the challenges and also try to provide solutions to some of the challenges facing horticultural sector in Nigeria.
Climate change, COVID-19 pandemic and insecurity have been identified here as primary factors aggravating food and nutritional insecurity in Nigeria. Food scientists say horticulture could be a solution to this challenge.
According to the United Nations, persons with disabilities generally have more healthcare needs than others, both standard needs and needs linked to impairments, and are therefore more vulnerable to the impact of low quality or inaccessible healthcare services than others. Now, compared to persons without disabilities, persons with disabilities are more likely to have poor health. Among 43 countries, 42% of persons with disabilities versus 6% of persons without disabilities perceive their health as poor. How has the community of persons living with disability in Nigeria fared in the second year of the complicated coronavirus pandemic? Well, joining us to talk more about this is Florence Austin. She's the admin manager, Centers for Citizens with Disability. She joins us virtually. Thank you for joining us on the program. First, what impact has the pandemic had on your members?
All right, thank you so much. Looking at the impact pandemic had on persons with disabilities, specifically from our client base, we showed that persons with disability were affected socio-economic activity of PWDs. We are cultures. What I mean is that there was no physical engagement on the activity of persons with disability. We also noted that most of the caregivers of persons with disability.
Oh dear, we must apologize because it looks like the audio is unclear at this time. Hopefully we'll try to reach Mrs. Florence shortly. But let's go on a break. When we return, we also have a story coming in from Zimbabwe as COVID-19 infections are also increasing there. We'll have that story and more when we return. Welcome back. The top U.S. infectious disease expert says Christmas travel will increase the spread of the Omicron COVID-19 variant, even among the fully vaccinated. Dr. Anthony Fauci says there's no doubt about this because Omicron has an extraordinary capability of spreading. He advises the U.S. government on the pandemic, saying the variant is now raging through the world. Countries are tightening measures as the heavily mutated variant spreads. In Europe, France France and Germany, they are among countries to issue travel restrictions, and the Netherlands has also imposed a strict lockdown over Christmas. The average number of new infections reported each day in Zimbabwe rises by more than 3,700 over the last 3 weeks. 82% of its previous peak COVID-19 infections are increasing in Zimbabwe, with 3,810 new infections reported on average each day. Now that's 83% of the peak, the highest daily average reported on the 14th of December. Meanwhile, there have been over 191,000 infections and over 4,700 coronavirus-related deaths reported in the country since the pandemic began. Nigel Nyamutumbo is a journalist from Zimbabwe. He joins us virtually on some of the country's plans to stem the wave of COVID-19. Hi, Nigel. Welcome to the program.
Sure, thanks. It's a pleasure being here.
Nigel, how is the government of Zimbabwe reacting to the travel ban or stricter restrictions of some other countries as a result of the Omicron variant?
Well, the move to suspend the travel restriction that had been imposed on Zimbabwe and other African countries has actually been warmly received. There is a significant population of Zimbabweans that reside in the United Kingdom and in European countries. They already had been planned, especially around this festive season and so on, and the prospects around trade and engagement had been affected by the restrictions. So, by and large, the news has been well received because the restrictions were unjustifiable in the first place.
Yes, and that's talking about the United Kingdom's decision to lift that ban. But we still have some other countries in Europe who also still have those bans in place. What is the response of the Zimbabwean government?
Well, from the onset, the Zimbabwean government has pronounced itself against these travel restrictions. It has joined in the Southern Africa Development Community and the African Union in really criticizing and pushing back against these travel restrictions. There has been a joint solidarity statement that has been issued within the regional bodies to try and, as much as possible, ensure that no country is restricted insofar as movement is concerned, as largely this Omicron variant of the pandemic has the World Health Organization already pronouncing itself that it does not warrant any knee-jerk reactions. So Zimbabwe has joined in the voices that is opposed to the imposition of this restriction.
And indeed, different countries and their governments are taking different measures to tackle this new variant. What has been the response of the national response in Zimbabwe to stemming, Omicron and the other variants that currently exist?
Well, the move by the Zimbabwean government has actually, in a way, been ironic in the sense that on one hand, they are joining the voices that are against and opposed to the imposition of travel restrictions. But on the other hand, the response by the Zimbabwean government, by and large, actually restricts movement into the country, including to returning residents. So, for example, the initial measures that had been in place were the requirement to have a negative PCR COVID test within 48 hours. Now the new regulations and new statutes that were put in place not only require the 48-hour PCR test, but you're also then required to be tested on site at arrival at the ports of entry, and largely these are the airports, because Zimbabwe is yet to open its land borders. So you still test at the airport, and they say after testing, you still need to quarantine for 10 days before you are released. And if you test positive, then you're put in isolation and then and so forth. So in a way, the additional measures that have been put in place insofar as travel is concerned are also quite restrictive, are not as any different as the countries that had overreacted insofar as the response to the pandemic is concerned. But nationally, it has also upscaled its response by also enforcing a lockdown and by ensuring it encourages people to get the vaccines, and it has also upscaled some restrictions insofar as the interaction of citizens. So there has been some work that is being done on the ground.
So finally, Nigel, in terms of vaccination, I heard sometime the country saying it's acquired enough COVID vaccines to inoculate 60% of the population to achieve herd immunity. Is that true, and how is that progressing?
Well, predominantly in the urban areas, the vaccination have been, there's been a real high uptake insofar as those that have been getting the jabs. There's been quite an information campaign around ensuring that people get vaccinated, but it has been relatively slow in the rural areas. Never mind that is actually where a significant bit of the population resides. So there are some challenges insofar as getting the herd immunity, but we've had assurances that not only are the vaccines now available, but the rollout thereof will be really intensified, including during this particular festive season. And it is one's hope that perhaps in the first quarter of next year, Zimbabwe might be one of those countries that would have reached herd immunity. But it is largely hinged upon how they're going to penetrate the peri-urban and rural areas.
Thanks so much, Nigel Yamutumbu, a journalist from Zimbabwe. Thank you for joining us.
Sure, it's a pleasure. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. And Austria is introducing stricter travel restrictions at its airport and borders. Persons who are not resident and arriving in the country will now have to be vaccinated, recovered, and show a valid negative PCR test. It's a similar scenario for travellers from the UK entering Germany, who must have a negative test and quarantine for 2 weeks. Here's more on the Global Update.
The EU's drug regulator has approved use of the COVID-19 vaccine from US-based Novavax in people 18 years and older, paving the way for a fifth coronavirus shot in the region as the Omicron coronavirus variant spreads. Data from 2 large studies show the vaccine has an efficacy of around 90%. COVID-19 infections have broken records in parts of Europe in recent weeks, with governments and researchers scrambling to bolster defences against the fast-spreading Omicron. Austria has introduced stricter travel restrictions at its airports and borders. Non-residents arriving in the country will now have to be vaccinated and show a valid negative PCR test. Austrian passport holders and residents will be allowed in unvaccinated, but will have to go into a 10-day isolation until they're able to show a negative PCR test. Travellers from the United Kingdom entering Germany must have a negative test and isolate for 2 weeks, regardless of whether they've been vaccinated. Officials announced the new rules as it classified the UK as a virus variant area of concern, the highest COVID-19 risk level. German citizens and residents will still be allowed to enter from the UK. Thailand is considering reinstating compulsory isolation for foreign visitors due to concerns over the spread of Omicron. It comes as the Health Ministry reported the country's first case of local transmission of the coronavirus variant. Elsewhere, acting on Health Ministry recommendations, Israeli cabinet ministers voted to put the United States, Italy, Belgium, Germany, Hungary, Morocco, Portugal, Canada, Switzerland and Turkey on the no-fly list.
Yeah, I'm going to fly to Belgium, Antwerp, to my rabbi, and I'm very upset to see the airport here. No people, and the restaurant is closed, everything is closed here. It's not look good. But Israel, it's in a good place. It's not the corona. This morning, it's only 350 people. In all the world, it's 1,000. I think the government make a good job, and I'm very happy.
The move comes amid rising coronavirus infections in Israel. It has so far recorded 134 confirmed cases of Omicron and 307 suspected cases.
Take a look at our websites for more updates and a better understanding of the pandemic. It's channelstv.com. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Walker. Stay safe.